Humanity's biggest problem is that people care too much about things they shouldn't care about and care too little about what really matters. Albert Ellis. Think about that for a second. How many times in the last week alone have you wasted time and energy on things that, if you stop to analyze them, change absolutely nothing in your life? A random opinion on the internet, a pointless argument about who's right, worrying about what others will think. You've spent your mind on all this, and what have you got in return? The brutal truth is that the world is full of emotionally exhausted people, not because they're doing too much, but because they're thinking too much about what doesn't matter. Have you ever felt mentally tired for no apparent reason? As if you were carrying an invisible weight all the time. That weight exists, and it comes from your inability to filter out what deserves your attention and what should simply be ignored. But here's the thing that hardly anyone notices. It doesn't happen by chance. You don't care about everything because you want to. You've been trained to. Since you were born, society has taught you that you need to care about everything. Your appearance, your reputation, what's trending, the opinion of complete strangers. And what's the result? A fragmented mind, overloaded and constantly drained by irrelevant stimuli. The more you worry about everything, the less energy you have left for what really makes a difference in your life. You think you're in control, but in reality, you're a slave to other people's judgment and social expectations. Now, stop and think. How many decisions have you made in recent years, not because you wanted to, but because you felt you should? How many times have you put your happiness on the back burner to please others? How many times have you given up something important for fear of being judged? The world wants you to carry on like this, distracted, insecure, and emotionally drained. But what if I told you there was a way out? That the key to a lighter, more productive life is not to do more, but to care less. But before we talk about how to free yourself from this, we need to understand how this trap was created. Why do you care so much about what doesn't matter? Who taught you to be like that? From the moment you were born, they began to program you. First, it was your parents and teachers, then the media, social networks, and the workplace. And this programming had a clear objective: to make you care about everything except what really matters. But let's think about it. How many of the worries that consume you today were actually chosen by you? The fear of appearing inadequate, the obsession with what others think, the need to follow the trend. Did this come from within you, or was it implanted gradually, without you realizing it? This programming has a pattern. It makes you believe that your happiness depends on the acceptance of others, that you need to please, to fit in, to be validated. And little by little, you learn to measure your worth by standards you never chose. But what's wrong with that? Simple. Your focus is finite. Your mental energy is limited. Each day, you wake up with a certain amount of mental energy, like a bank balance. Now imagine that you have 100 coins of energy a day. If every unnecessary worry was a withdrawal, how much would be left for what really matters? Caring about the opinions of strangers on the internet? 15 coins less. Stressing about other people's gossip and drama? 20 less. Obsessing over the number of likes or followers? 30 coins less. Comparing your life to someone else's? 25 coins less. At the end of the day, when it comes time to invest in what really makes a difference, your goals, your health, your real relationships, the balance is already zero. This is not a new problem. More than 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He saw humanity wasting time and energy on irrelevant concerns, on problems that didn't even exist. Now ask yourself, how many of the things you worry about today will really matter in a year's time? But if we know it's hurting us, why do we keep doing it? Because the system wants it that way. Modern society doesn't want you to focus on what really matters. On the contrary, it depends on your fear, your insecurity, your need for validation. Capitalism needs you to always feel that something is missing. Social networks need you to always compare yourself. The media needs you to always be anxious about the next crisis. The more distracted and emotionally unstable you are, the more manipulable you become. And what's worse, all of this works without you even realizing it. A modern example? The cancellation culture. Today, all it takes is one slip-up, one unpopular opinion, one misinterpreted comment, and that's it. You become the target of attacks. People lose their jobs, their reputations, and their mental health because the world has taught them that they desperately need to care about collective acceptance. But who defined this rule? Who said that the opinion of a crowd of strangers should define your life? And a classic example? The myth of Narcissus. Narcissus, in Greek mythology, lost himself when he fell in love with his own reflection. He became so obsessed with his image that he forgot to live. The same thing happens today, but the reflection is no longer in a lake. It's on our cell phone screens. We are conditioned to see ourselves through the eyes of others, incessantly seeking approval and recognition. And what's the result? A fragmented mind, overloaded and constantly drained by irrelevant stimuli. You think you're in control, but in reality, you're a slave to other people's judgment and social expectations. Now stop and think. How many decisions have you made in recent years, not because you wanted to, but because you felt you should? How many times have you put your happiness on the back burner to please others? How many times have you given up something important for fear of being judged? The world wants you to carry on like this, distracted, insecure, and emotionally drained. But what if I told you there was a way out? That the key to a lighter, more productive life is not to do more, but to care less? But before we talk about how to free yourself from this, we need to understand what the real price of caring too much is. How much of your life has been wasted on things that make no difference? Wake up, work, pay bills, sleep, and repeat it all over again the next day. Life goes by like this, and one day you realize that time has slipped away. Dreams were postponed. Opportunities went unnoticed. This happens because no one ever taught you how to see the game of life the right way. But there is another path. If you want to reach the next level, you need to access new knowledge. And that's exactly what you'll find in the White Rabbit Codes. This book will open your eyes to what is really happening. You'll understand why you keep getting stuck in the same cycles, learn how to escape autopilot, and start seeing the opportunities that were always there. And finally, you'll make decisions that truly lead to the life you've always wanted. If you feel ready for this change, the link is in the pinned comment. You'll be surprised at how simple it can be to increase your prosperity. Success is a decision. The choice is yours. You're not tired because you do too much. You're tired because you care too much about what doesn't matter. And what's worse, you don't even realize the price you're paying for it. Every time you give importance to something irrelevant, you make a small withdrawal of your mental energy. At first, it seems insignificant, but over time, these small expenditures accumulate and you find yourself exhausted, anxious, and unclear about what really matters. Science confirms this. A Harvard University study showed that people spend almost 50% of their time with their minds wandering, focused on irrelevant thoughts, and this makes them significantly less happy. Another study in the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making revealed that an overload of useless worries leads to worse decisions because the brain becomes exhausted trying to process information that shouldn't even be there. But let's move on from the studies and bring this into your everyday life. Think of all the hours you've wasted worrying about things that, deep down, change absolutely nothing in your life. That negative comment you couldn't get out of your head. The time spent trying to win a pointless argument on the internet. Stress because someone didn't reply to your message quickly enough. Now imagine if all that energy had been invested in something productive. Your growth, your health, your goals. How far could your life have come? But here's the worst side effect. When you care about everything, you become paralyzed. The fear of judgment prevents you from taking action. You think about starting a project, but you're held back by, what if it doesn't work out? You want to change your life, but you worry too much about what others will think. And while you hesitate, the years go by. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever looked back and realized that you wasted too much time worrying about things that are completely irrelevant today? The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described it perfectly. The door to change can only be opened from the inside. No one is going to free you from this mental prison. Only you can decide that some things no longer deserve your attention. Now that you understand the price of caring too much, the next question is inevitable. Why have we been conditioned to act like this? Who taught us that we should care about everything? Why do you care so much about what other people think? Have you ever stopped to think about it? From an early age, we learn that our acceptance in a group depends on the approval of others. When we were children, being rejected meant being left out of games. In adolescence, not fitting in was a nightmare. And in adulthood, we're still trapped in the same fear. The fear of not being accepted, of not being admired, of not belonging. But here's the brutal truth. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Most people are too preoccupied with their own problems to spend time analyzing their lives. You can spend hours dwelling on a mistake or an embarrassing situation, but at the end of the day, people forget, because they're also busy worrying about what other people think of them. This phenomenon has a name. The spotlight theory, studied by psychologists at Cornell University, shows that we tend to overestimate how much attention others pay to us. In an experiment, participants wore shameful t-shirts and were then asked how many people noticed them. Most believed that everyone was looking, but in reality, hardly anyone cared. And yet, we continue to live as if we were under constant judgment. We dress to impress, we post to be validated, we shape our opinions to avoid conflict. But who says we have to live like this? The philosopher Epictetus taught centuries ago that anyone who seeks the approval of others becomes their slave, because the more you need external validation, the less freedom you have. Your decisions aren't really yours. You don't choose based on what you want, but on what you think will please. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. Even if you do everything right, you'll still be criticized. Steve Jobs was criticized. Martin Luther King was hated. Anyone who has done something great in life has faced judgment. And ironically, even those who never do anything are also judged, only for being mediocre. In other words, you're never going to please everyone, so why keep trying? Now stop and think. How many choices in your life have been made for yourself? And how many were made to meet other people's expectations? External validation is an illusion, and the only way to escape it is to start validating yourself. But how? Caring less doesn't mean being cold, insensitive, or irresponsible. It means being clear about what really deserves your attention and what should be ruthlessly discarded. The problem is that most people have never learned to make this distinction. They live in reactive mode, spending time and energy on irrelevant things, and at the end of the day, there's nothing left for what really matters. Think of your mind as the memory of a cell phone. If you fill up your storage with useless photos, apps you never use, and heavy files that serve no purpose, when you need space for something really important, you won't have it. And what's worse, your phone will still be slow, stuck, unable to properly process what you really need to do. This is exactly how your mind works when you worry about everything. Now let's think about it in practice. Have you ever had an entire day ruined by something small? A silly critique? A sour look? A message that took too long to arrive? At the time, it seemed huge. But now, looking back, you realize how insignificant it really was. The problem isn't that these things happen. The problem is that you gave them a weight they should never have had. And why is that? Because we've been trained to react to everything. The modern world bombards us with notifications, opinions, problems that aren't even ours. Every time you care about something irrelevant, you're wasting a chunk of your mental energy, and it's not infinite. Now think of the greats of history, people who changed the world, who did extraordinary things. Do you think these people wasted their time worrying about gossip, about haters on the internet? What a coworker thought of them? Number. They had a clear focus. They knew exactly where to put their energy and where not to. But that doesn't mean they didn't care about anything. It means they chose what to care about. Here's the key. You need to treat your attention as a valuable resource. If something doesn't get you closer to your goals, it doesn't deserve your time. If someone's opinion isn't going to change your life, they don't deserve a second of your concern. If a problem won't be relevant in a month's time, it doesn't deserve to steal your sleep today. When you learn this art, your life changes. You become lighter, more focused, more confident. What used to upset you now becomes insignificant. You gain time, energy, and clarity. And the best thing? People notice. Your attitude changes. Your posture changes. And suddenly you become someone others respect, because they see in you something rare, control over your own mind. Now that you've understood this, here comes the most important question. How do you apply this in your daily life? How do you train your mind to filter out what deserves your attention and what should be ignored? Is this content making you reflect and sparking new ways of thinking? If so, click the Super Thanks button just below the video. It's a way to say thank you and help me bring more content like this to those who need to reflect on life. Now that you've understood the art of not giving a damn, here comes the most important question. How do you apply this in your daily life? How do you train your mind to filter out what deserves your attention and what should be ignored? The truth is that it's not enough just to understand the concept. Caring less is a skill, and like any skill, it needs to be practiced. And practice starts now. The first step is to identify your real priorities. If you don't define what really matters to you, the world will do it for you, and the world will drown you in useless distractions. So stop for a moment and ask yourself, what really matters to me? What really makes me happy? What is worth investing my time and energy in? If you don't know how to answer this, you'll keep wasting your attention on anything that comes your way. You'll continue to care about random opinions, problems that aren't yours, expectations that don't even make sense to you. You'll keep carrying dead weight. And speaking of dead weight, here comes the second step. Stop looking for external validation. Every time you worry about what others will think, you're handing them control of your life. But let's be honest. No one is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Remember that embarrassing situation you dwelled on for days? Well, nobody does. People are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to care about yours. So whenever you realize that you're stuck in a pointless worry, repeat to yourself, if this isn't going to matter in a year's time, then it doesn't deserve to matter today. The third step is to learn to say no without guilt. Every time you accept something you don't want to do, you're saying no to yourself. And if you don't prioritize your energy, no one else will do it for you. So adopt a simple rule. If it's not a hell yeah, zrania, it's a no. If it's not something that really makes sense to you, turn it down. It's as simple as that. The next step is to drastically reduce your exposure to noise. The modern world is designed to hijack your attention. Social media, news, gossip, drama, everything is there to keep you distracted, to ensure that your mind never has a second of silence. But try something. For 24 hours, don't watch social media, don't consume news, don't read gossip, don't get into pointless debates. See how you feel. I guarantee you, at the end of the day, you'll realize that you haven't missed anything important. What you've missed is the opportunity to worry about irrelevant things, and that's actually a gain. And finally, expose yourself to discomfort. Not caring means accepting that sometimes people will judge you, and that's fine. They would do that anyway. If you try to please everyone, you'll fail. If you try to avoid criticism, you'll fail. The only way to win this game is to stop playing it. And when someone criticizes you, stop and ask yourself, is this criticism based in reality? Is it coming from someone whose opinion I really respect? If not, then that criticism doesn't deserve a second of your time. But now comes the most important part. Are you really willing to apply it? Or are you going to keep worrying about useless things? Because at the end of the day, it's not life that's overwhelming you. It's your inability to ignore what doesn't deserve your attention. And now that you have the tools, the choice is yours. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You're subscribed to the channel, you watch the videos, you reflect on every idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to take this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit Codes is ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.